the release of the new Rin and Seri Inseparable Secret Lair Commander deck, I thought now would be the perfect time to share my $300 Rin and Seri list. If you just bought the deck or are thinking about doing so, Rin and Seri are a really fun, fuzzy commander who are good at doing damage and making lots of tokens. So when I first sat down to build this list, I had 3 goals in mind. 1, I wanted to pump out as many dog and cat tokens as possible. 2, I wanted to play fast and do damage. And 3, I wanted it to be under $300. Let's dive into why this is a great deck to sleeve up and bring to your next commander session. Spirited Companion is from one of my favorite sets, Kamigawa Neon Dynasty. It's cheap at 2 mana and provides easy card draw when it ETBs. Kutzil Malamet Exemplar can draw you 3 cards per turn, which is already fantastic, but also stifles your opponents from casting spells on your turn. If you're trying to set up a game-ending turn, Kutzil plays a huge part in ensuring your plan goes off without a hitch. Realm Walker is a bit of a triple threat. It doesn't explicitly give card draw, but playing creatures off the top of your library is useful when 37% of your deck is creatures. Realm Walker is a Changeling, so it's twice the value for Rin and Seri's abilities, and even if you're not playing the card off the top of your deck, you always know what it is. This removes how much variance you're playing with and gives some form of card advantage. Alms Collector used to be relatively expensive, but after its reprint in Commander Masters, it dropped below $2, making it the perfect option for this list. What's great about Alms Collector is it flashes in to disrupt your opponent's card draw and swings that advantage in your favor instead. Beast Whisperer is the only creature that isn't a cat, dog, or changeling in the deck, and for good reason. For $6, we're drawing each time we cast a creature, and we're casting a lot of creatures. Keeper of Fables is just a worse Kutzil, but on a stronger body at least. 5 mana is a steep cost, but it's a great target for some of our individual pump options we'll get into later. It wouldn't be a creature typal deck without Herald's Horn and Vanquisher's Banner. Herald's Horn is similar to Realm Walker, except we have a 37% chance to draw a card on our upkeep, and it provides ramp as well. When it comes to Vanquisher's Banner, I've seen some people say it's a little bit too slow at 5 mana, but for a +1/+1 anthem and card draw, I really don't see an issue with including it. Elven Chorus is like Realm Walker, but turns all of those cute 1/1s into mana dorks to build our army and take them to the Pound Town. The Pound, it's ramp. This card is also a ramp piece. Glorious Sunrise gives us several options to choose from going into combat. You can end the game with Trample, throw some mana into your pool for some tricks, draw a card, or gain some life. So you really have 3 options to choose from. Good card for cheap. I love the Horizon lands, so including Horizon Canopy was a no-brainer. We've got so much life gain in the deck that paying for 1 colored mana we need is pretty negligible. Jetmir's Garden is the most expensive card in the deck, but I valued having the Triome in here for emergency card draw. I really valued having a strong mana base, and while it may not be perfectly optimized, I never run into mana issues piloting it. The last piece of card draw for permanence is one of my favorite new cards, Minas Tirith. I've slotted it into every deck I own that has white in the color identity because it ensures you aren't running out of gas as the game drags on. Now let's talk about some instants and sorceries that also give us card draw. Shamanic Revelation is a slower card because of its 5 mana cost, but it's a great comeback tool when you need some emergency life, or a good mana sink if you've got some extra mana to spend. Rite of Harmony isn't the strongest option, but I like the option to flashback it. Flash it back? I don't know. Anyway, my philosophy on including it here is very similar to Glorious Sunrise. I like having options. Return of the Wildspeaker is almost always good for 4 because of Rin and Seri being a 4/4, but can also be cast during combat to pump our 1/1s and wipe our opponent's blockers, or just outright kill them. Since we're planning to go into combat early and often, it's good to have multiple options. So we've got tons of cards in our hand because of our roughly 16 sources of card draw. Let's take a look at how we're going to get these cats and dogs out even faster using ramp. Goldhound is an evasive pup who doubles as a mana-neutral ramp option. You can either drop it in early to help ramp out Rin and Seri, or use it later as a dangerous combat threat. Black Market Tycoon has saved my early game every time I've drawn it. 1 treasure per turn makes a huge difference in this deck. Here's a few more artifacts you'll probably recognize. Soul Ring, Arcane Signet, Naya's Signet, and Talisman of Unity. Soul Ring and Arcane Signet are staples in really any commander deck, and I've only included the Naya color mana rocks in here because only 10% of the deck needs red mana. One way to get a lot of green mana is with Growing Rites of Itlimoc. It's possible to draw a creature when it ETBs as well, but once it's transformed, you'll be swimming in mana. Just to mention it again, Elven Chorus really is a beast in this deck. It's a beast in any token deck, but since you're making so many tokens, you're just making mana dorks. For an enchantment that doesn't care what type of creatures you have, Mirari's Wake is there for a +1/+1 anthem while doubling our land's mana production. It wouldn't be green without a few ramp sorceries in there as well. I didn't do anything crazy, I just threw in a few cheap staples with Rampant Growth, Cultivate, and Kodama's Reach. So we're ramping out all of these creatures, but our opponents are probably doing the same. The first question to ask is, how are we dealing with these threats? It's got to be some form of interaction. Obviously, we've got Rin and Seri who can do red things and throw damage wherever we need them to. Outside of Rin and Seri, we've got lots of enchantment and artifact removal like I mentioned before. Masked Vandal, Qasali Pride Mage, Feline Sovereign, Qasali Slingers. A big part of building this deck was finding creatures who did something. I didn't want to just jam in a cat who didn't contribute to the rest of the deck. All 4 of these cards provide utility outside of just their creature type line, which I think is a good way to look at how we're building typal decks. Getting back into it, we've got some Stifles. Kutzil, Malamet Exemplar, which we've talked about before, Prowling Serpapard, and Marisi, Breaker of the Coil. We've already talked about Kutzil, but Prowling Serpapard and Marisi, Breaker of the Coil do very similar things. They prevent your opponent from interacting with your board when it matters most. It's not hexproof, but it's pretty close. Outside of creatures, we've got some standard white and green options at instant speed. Path to Exile, Swords to Plowshares, Beast Within, and Generous Gift. And because I had some extra budget to work with, I threw in Iganjo as well. If one of our high-value creatures gets nuked, we could be in a lot of trouble. That's where Graveyard Recursion comes in, and Bala Ged Recovery is one of our best options. I love double-faced cards, especially when the other half is a land, and especially when they fill a hole in the deck construction that isn't easily fixed. Taking care of our graveyard is important, but taking care of our opponent's graveyard is also important. For that, we've got Lion Sash, a not-so-cuddly cat from Kamigawa that rewards itself for exiling cards from our opponent's graveyards. If the game gets out of hand and we need to catch up, luckily we've got white board wipes as an option. Wrath of God, Austere Command, and a nice trick with a Johnny Strength of the Pride. He slots in here as an asymmetrical board wipe in case we need to get rid of some of those pesky blockers so we can just end the game. I talked about synergies already, so let's take a look at the best creatures in this deck. Changelings. Individually, they aren't that powerful, but combined with Rin and Seri's abilities, these goofy guys play a big role in what makes this deck function so well. The first few are a bunch of vanilla Changelings, or at least mostly vanilla. Their job is to sit on the board for Rin and Seri. With Universal Automaton, Firebelly Changeling, Guardian Gladewalker, Imposter of the Sixth Pride, and Woodland Changeling. We've already talked about Masked Vandal and Realmwalker as well, so to round out the list, we've got some powerhouses. I originally bought Mirror Entity for a Marneus Calgar deck that I ended up rebuilding, and I never thought I'd use it again. Turns out, it's pretty strong in this deck, and turns Rin and Seri's ability into a tactical missile once we've got our board in place. Terran Mauler punishes your opponents for playing spells, and can very quickly go from a 2-2 the turn you play it to a 20-20 on the next, just in time for Summoning Sickness to wear off so you can charge in. But lots of these creatures have pretty low power and toughness. They'll need some help to grow up and evolve into a big scary cat, dog, amorphous blob thing. That's where anthems come in. Hungry Lynx used to be $13 because it had only seen one print. Now it's under $4 and is a fun political tool capable of pumping up your board. It also directly counters any rat decks you may run into out in the wild. While Hungry Lynx cares about cats, Pack Leader gives our 1/1 dogs a little bit more bite. Feline Sovereign does the same for cats on top of its useful removal ability. Feline Sovereign is one of the few cards I would say is an auto-include in this deck. I originally built a list around Kahira the Orphan Guard as a companion, but I didn't like it as much as this one. +1/+1 and Vigilance for all cats is nothing to snuff at either way, so Kahira gets a spot. The only reason not to include King of the Pride in this deck is because tracking the +2/+1 difference can be annoying on paper. Mirror Entity is back to remind you that it is a game ender. And finally, Regal Caracal may not seem like much for 5 mana, but it makes you nearly impossible to kill if you've got a semi-decent board build. There are a few cards in this list that don't really have a spot in any of the other categories I talked about. When I'm building a list, these are usually the first cards that I look to cut. However, these 13 cards provide something really unique to the deck that I thought was worth keeping. First, we've got the beloved Selfless Savior. Because Rin and Seri are such a pivotal part of this deck as our token engine, I wanted to include a way to keep them safe in case someone tries to send them to the pound. Again with the pound reference. For 1 mana, it's a great option. Speaking of 1 mana, Wild Nacatl is a cheap trigger for Rin and Seri, and there's a really good chance this kitty's going to have some claws the second it hits the battlefield. I love this card, and it has single-handedly carried me in quite a few games. There aren't many, if any, cards in this deck that are selfish, but Pride Sovereign lives up to its name and gives us an excellent trample user. Miri, Weatherlight Duelist, is also on the list of used to be extremely expensive, but after 1 reprint dropped to extremely affordable. Miri is an incredibly unique card. The first half of their ability is incredible for swinging out for damage, and the second half rewards you for doing that with protection when Miri is tapped. Honestly, Sky Hunter Strikeforce is a card you could choose to cut and replace with something else. I kept it because it's got a combat pump for 1, but more specifically because it has flying, and this deck doesn't really have any options for something like an Angel deck besides focusing that player down first. Jetmir Nexus of Rebels is a pretty great commander by itself, but it slots into this deck just fine to pump your board to a max +3/+0, Vigilance, Trample, and Double Strike. Basically, it's an auto-include as well. I think you could comfortably cut Leonin War Leader as well, as it's on the pricey end at $6, but the token generation it offers is pretty nifty. I immediately wanted Sovereign Okonek Aho for Rin and Seri when it was announced, because it doubles your board's power on each attack and is pretty pesky to remove with Ward 2. You can cut Nakato War Pride if you want, but I included it as a bit of a pet card in this deck. I've yet to play with it, but I've always thought about it when making changes to Rin and Seri, plus I enjoy the Future Sight card frame. We have to protect Rin and Seri at all costs, so I've included the commander staple Lightning Greaves to make removal more difficult, but also giving Rin and Seri haste should they ever need it. Defense is great, but we're playing tons of creatures and pumping out even more tokens. This means we're getting a ton of value out of Impact Tremors, so I'm 100% including it. You could cut Beastmaster Ascension for some other utility, but if you attack with 7 creatures the turn you play it, you're automatically getting the +5/+5, and combine that with Trample and you just win the game. Lastly, Ajani's Strength of the Pride fits into a lot of categories. Life gain, token generation, board wipe, and they can just outright win you the game. So I liked it here, and I kind of wanted a Planeswalker. I specifically built this deck to have a really strong mana base because it's 3 colors. So some of the lands that you see in this section are going to be pretty pricey compared to the rest of the list. I knew I'd be including more basics in this than I usually would in a 3-color deck, so I tried to make the dual lands as efficient as possible. The only really efficient lands that I didn't add were fetch lands and shock lands, but now that shock lands are like $10, I'll probably add those too. Taking a look at our mana base, starting out with the utility lands. Animal Sanctuary is a great mana sink to buff your creatures, and is also very on theme with the deck. I had a few extra bucks, so I added Iganjo's Seat of the Empire for another removal option. With our go wide strategy, having the ability to add +1/+1 counters to all of our creatures with Gavany Township is pretty great. And like I said earlier, I put Minas Tirith in every white deck I have. The card draw on a land is fantastic. Now we're getting into the core mana base. We've got 2 tri-lands with Jetmir's Garden and Jungle Shrine. Like I said before, Jetmir's Garden is the most expensive card in the deck, but I valued having the Triome as an emergency card draw option, and Jungle Shrine comes in tapped, but is great for mana fixing. It's basically a budget Jetmir's Garden. If you're playing Commander, the Bond lands are an auto-include if it's within your budget. Bountiful Promenade, Spired Garden, and Spectator Seating are all really good cards. Unfortunately, the Tango or Battlelands are only printed in allied colors, but I've included them specifically because I'm running more basic lands in this deck than I normally would in the tricolor deck, so they're a cheap dual option. Canopy Vista and Cinderglade are the 2 options for Tango lands. A similar story to the Tango lands, it's very unlikely that Sunpetal Grove, Rootbound Crag, and Clifftop Retreat are coming in tapped. I'd highly recommend you look at the Horizon lands for your decks, but Horizon Canopy is especially good in this one because of our life gain. I only included Sel's Naya colors because the Boros card is $9, and we don't really have much red in the deck, so I didn't think I needed it. The slow lands cycle are just better versions of Tango lands and definitely worth the spot, with Overgrown Farmland, Rockfall Vale, and Sundown Pass. Pain lands are my favorite cycle of untapped dual lands because of the trade-off you take by using them, which is usually pretty fair, but since we have so much life gain, it's basically free. They're pretty inexpensive dual lands, so they make a perfect fit for this list. A couple more dual lands that I didn't include but thought about including were Show Duels with Fortified Village and Game Trail, Bounce Duels with Sel's Naya Sanctuary, Gruul Turf, and Boros Garrison, or the Filtered Duels with Wooded Bastion, Firelit Thicket, and Rugged Prairie. So now let's look at the rest of the lands. With Command Tower, the only time I'm not running it is in monocolored decks. Exotic Orchard is super cheap, and the odds are pretty good you'll get the color you need. Worst case scenario, you're using it to pay for colorless costs. Secluded Courtyard is great for typal decks like this one, as is Unclaimed Territory. And finally, I'm running 11 basic lands. I think there's plenty of room to play around with these numbers, but right now I'm running 7 forests, 3 plains, and 1 mountain. I've never been mana screwed with this deck, partly because I think the mana base is pretty decent, but also because I run quite a bit of card draw, so I'm constantly cycling through the top of my deck. As we get to the end of this video, I wanted to go through a couple honorable mentions. Most of these were cut just because they were too expensive to fit within $300, but some of them just didn't have enough utility to fit in either. If there's any cards in here that you just don't like that much, these would be great options to replace them with. Tribute to the World Tree is absolutely cracked in this deck. It would be the first upgrade I'd make to the list. It just didn't fit for $300. Same as King of the Pride, tracking +1/+4 is annoying on paper, especially when it's only on your turn. Bravo is a great card, but for that reason it just didn't make the cut. Roaming Throne is basically an auto-include in any commander deck nowadays, which is why it wasn't included on this list. It's currently sitting at $21, so it's a bit pricey, but an absolutely incredible inclusion if you want to ball out. I also didn't include any token doublers. pretty much for the same reason, they're expensive. Osier Talk, Mondrak, Glory Dominus, Anointed Procession, Parallel Lives, and Doubling Season are all great in the deck. They're just expensive. If you want another option to protect Rin and Seri, Swiftfoot Boots are great. Lightning Greaves are just better. One common strategy that you'll see for Rin and Seri lists are bounce effects using Whitemane Lion, Fleetfoot Panther, Temur Sabertooth, and a couple other cards. I took these out because they're part of a bit of a combo piece with Alurin, and I just didn't think it was that valuable after playing with it a couple times. There was multiple times where I would play a Whitemane Lion to bounce one of my cards back, but I just lost all card advantage on the board, and it was just really hard to rebuild. Arabo, Roar of the World, is the king of the jungle for cat decks, usually at the helm, but for 15 bucks, it's a bit pricey. Bramaz, King of Oreskos, is super good in this deck, but due to only having one printing, it's holding just under 20 bucks. It's not great for our more budget-friendly list, but is definitely an upgrade. I know Felidar Retreat is a good card, but I just don't run it in many decks for some reason. It's got great synergy in Rin and Seri, it's one of the few cards I just don't like playing. The Great Henge has great card draw and a +1/+1 on whenever you play a card. This card is the whole package, but at $60, it just doesn't fit. You can definitely add Cathar's Crusade and Coat of Arms, but they're a bit ridiculous to keep track of on paper and also pretty expensive. They're very powerful, but your turn length will definitely increase. Titanic Ultimatum ends the game short and simple, but I've built this list twice and I haven't slotted it in either time. I'm sure it's great in the deck, but I just haven't included it. For two more removal options, Boseiju Who Endures and Stroke of Midnight are great. Boseiju is basically the best utility land in green, but at $40 it's a bit too steep for this list, and Stroke of Midnight is an excellent removal spell for white. I didn't need another removal option though, and Generous Gift is dirt cheap now, plus I had an extra copy of it lying around. So I left out Stroke of Midnight. Nothing wrong with including it on your list, and it's probably an upgrade. I wanted this to retain its cat dog flavor as much as I could, but you could absolutely jam in some more options for changelings like Chameleon Colossus. You can absolutely run tutors in this deck. I just don't run tutors in any of mine. If tutors are your thing, more power to you. I've got a couple options. Eladamri's Call, Enlightened Tutor, Worldly Tutor, and Idyllic Tutor are all great in this deck. These combat tricks are staples in Commander, which is one reason that they're just a little bit too pricey. Starting with Teferi's Protection, Akroma's Will, Heroic Intervention, Flawless Maneuver, Clever Concealment, and Deflecting Swat. They're all great, but great cards also tend to cost more. I started this video by saying I wanted the deck to be under $300, and I hit that goal. But I didn't make that goal because of some kind of budgetary concern. I made it because I didn't want the deck to be too strong. I didn't want another mid-8 power level deck that just played a bunch of really strong cards because it could. I wanted to build a deck that came together through synergy and won that way, not just off the back of one really strong card. There's nothing wrong with throwing a Teferi's Protection in your deck and winning the game that way. In fact, you'll probably win more games simply by having it in a deck, which is exactly why I didn't include it in mine. For the same reason that I don't include any tutors in my decks, I didn't include too many individually strong commander staples in this. I wanted a more casual deck, something that I could bring out with my friends that have never played before, or give to my friends that had never played before when we were trying to play together, and I feel like I hit the perfect balance on that. So that's my Rin and Seri deck. If you enjoyed seeing a bit of my deck building process, make sure to let me know in the comments. Also, let me know what your favorite card on the list is. I'd love to know. Make sure to also drop a like and subscribe. It really helps with the channel because I'm starting this whole thing from scratch, and it just might push this content to someone else that's trying to build a Rin and Seri deck. I hope you enjoyed this video, and hopefully someday you and I can play this deck against each other. Peace.